What's up, guys? Monster Island by Graham Nolan. Another great one in his line at Compass Comics. Before I continue, though, if you could subscribe to the channel for more reviews on indie comics like this, as well as my Off the Cuff series, which are spoiler free, and also much shorter, if that's your thing. And also, if you could, just give this video a thumbs up. I would certainly appreciate that. And now that we have that all out of the way, let's just dive right on into the story here. So we open with our two main protagonists, Duke and Mac. They're checking out a mysterious island from the cockpit of their F-14 Tomcat. They confirm that they have no data on this island at all and go in to take a closer look. And just as they start to get in, their jet has like a little freak out moment. It's like, ugh. Everything starts to short out. All of their electronics are just being fried. Think of like kind of like a little EMP that just went off. This forces Duke to land the plane in the water. They get out of the cockpit and immediately just kind of take note of what supplies they do have. Just kind of take a look at their immediate surrounding area, and then decide, okay, let's go look around the island real quick, see what all is here. They make their way through the woods and reach a clearing where they find a small dinosaur-like creature. Mac draws her Beretta to shoot it. You know, she was like, I'm going to eat some of that. But Duke decides that, hey, it's small. We need to kind of conserve our ammo. Let's just run it down real quick. Okay, we can do that. The pair try to capture it, and they are just failing in spectacular fashion. And this scene kind of reminded me a lot of Rocky getting trained up for Apollo, you know, where he's chasing around the chicken. Duke chases this little critter into the brush, and after a brief moment, runs out like a bat out of hell. He just... And the creature and his mother come right out behind, and yeah, this thing's a bit on the intimidating side, so... they decide that it's best to drop the kid and scurry up a cliff to get to higher ground. Now that they're in safety, they assess their situation, and in short, they're fucked. Figuring that there's some search and rescue on its way, they find that it's best to go ahead and get back to the plane so they can at least radio ahead, hey, there's big-ass fucking monsters here, be on the lookout. And as they journey back to the plane, they theorize as to why they couldn't find this on the radar to begin with. Duke suggests that it's like an energy field that's surrounding the island. And Mac is a bit more on the skeptical side. She calls that kind of Star Trek. A little too Star Trek-y. So they reach the plane and find that it's been robbed of its resources like missiles, flares, and a life raft. The plane has also essentially been put on cinder bricks, so maybe the island's an extension of Oakland? Don't know. Before they have time to really process what has just happened, Max screams out to Duke and points to the sky. They watch as a two-headed dragon flies above them. This beast is flying until it hits the force field and turns back. Duke was right. This, paired with what happened to their plane, leads them to the conclusion that somebody is definitely running the show here on the island. Okay, so real quick, we just kind of check in with the Navy, see, in fact, they are sending out like a search and rescue team, and are actively looking for our two protagonists here. But then we go back to go back over to Mac and Duke, and we find them, they're back out trekking through the woods, and they're just kind of passing the time, getting to know each other's backstories a little bit better. And then suddenly Mac is just grabbed up by her neck and hoisted up by like a big old large slug-like monster. Duke fires at it with his revolver, and the slug throws Mac at him. Or at least holds Mac, smacks him, and then brings her back. Mac then gets a real clear shot and hits the creature with several rounds from a Beretta. The creature drops her and then falls on top of her. Duke is obviously panicked. it's not every day your partner gets crushed by a giant slug. He rushes over to help. He struggles to move the slug. It's slimy and big. But he lifts it just enough to get Mac out of there. So after this whole thing, we make sure Mac is okay. She's all right. She's just a bit slimy. Kind of remind me a little bit of Peter Venkman there from Ghostbusters. I've been slimed. Duke, he tries to make light of the situation, pokes a little bit of fun at her. But Mac is not exactly in the choking mood. That was a real close call for her. So Duke backs off and does what he can to comfort her and suggest finding a place for her to clean up. We quickly see that our protagonists are not alone on this island, and they are actually being watched. But enough of that for now. Let's check back over with Mac and Duke. They found a freshwater pond, and Mac decides she's going to go in for a quick dip, and Duke is going to provide lookout. Although he does kind of forget which way to look out for, and Mac is quick to remind him which way. And while Duke is back to looking out correctly this time, and kind of pouting about it, he is approached by a fish-like creature who zaps him with a paralysis gun and carries him off. I do find that this is kind of a nice little taste of the humor you find in Compass Comics, by the way. Alright, so while Duke is being hauled off by the fish-like creature, Mac is just, she's finishing up getting cleaned up from all that slimy shit. She calls to Duke to, hey, throw my clothes, but there's no reply. She climbs up the hill real quick, grabs her clothes, and realizes Duke is gone. She then gets dressed as quickly as possible and runs off to find him. Okay, let's give a quick check-in on our Navy friends there. We see that they're searching the last known area for Mac and Duke. Can't find anything and are ordered to come right on back. And then the ones who are monitoring Mac and Duke on the island they're in fact the ones responsible for the cloaking device and are happy to see that it's working, and do notice that one of their guests are approaching. The guest in question, of course, is Mac, and she is demanding that they open up or else. She is greeted by a hamster-looking alien monster who isn't exactly speaking English until it gives Mac a little boop on the forehead. The little hamster-looking guy explains that his species is called Gooch, and that they can absorb any language from just a touch. That's pretty handy, I gotta admit. It then invites her to follow it down to the others, where her questions will be answered. She then gets to meet the Gooch leader, Critty, who then explains that the Gooch are the caretakers of Monster Island, which is composed of trouble creatures from other planet that they remove from these planets at the request of the residents of the planets. So somebody reaches out to them and says, "Hey, I got to trouble someone over here. Come get it." Okay, we'll take care of that for you. Here's the bill. Mac then asks the obvious question, what are you doing here? There are no monsters here. Critty then tells her that the island moves around the universe for pickups, or in Earth's case, for potential clients, in the future, and tells her that their instruments detect that there will be monster activity off the coast of Japan in the near future. Interesting. I wonder what they're alluding to there. Critty also tells her that the island's going to be disappearing here soon, so Mac's like, okay, well, just give me Duke and I'll be on my way. And Critty says, we don't have Duke. He then tells Mac that Duke was taken prisoner by one of the collectives, one of their group there, and proposes Mac help return the AWOL collective, and in return she'll get Duke, but also they'll lower the containment field so that they can get off the island. However, time is limited, and so not feeling that there's much choice, Mac, she's kind of coerced into agreeing, of course. So Mac sets off on her journey, and she's barely into it before once again being attacked by another damn monster. She manages to escape it by the skin of her teeth. However, she's now holding on to a cliff's edge, and she is like just starting to lose her grip. She just can't hang on. She's about to give up and, fall, plummet to her death, uh, before she's grabbed by yet another monster. She pulls out her gun and aims it at the creature and is stopped by Duke and his new set of friends. Duke introduces Mac to his new friends, starting with Princess Julia. And then the rest of the crew, who he is now named because he couldn't pronounce their names. We have Rooster, Quirt, Big Jake, and AWOL, as he is now known. And note, most of these characters, outside of Julia and AWOL, are actually John Wayne characters. They go on to explain to Mac that the Gooch that she met earlier and sent her on this mission, they're not as they appear to be. They've been corrupted and are taking on political undesirables for a price. How much? But this is not the honorable thing to do, as the Gooch pride themselves in being honorable. So this is why AWOL left to begin with. So Mac and Duke have a back and forth as to whether or not they should help. Mac just wants to report the island to the Navy, as is their responsibility. And Duke says the people on the island need their help, and if they go back to the Navy and talk about a monster island, they're going to be thrown in a fucking loony bin, or at the very least be Section 8. AWOL also adds that since he's still connected to the collective's consciousness, he knows that they will never lower the shields as they promised Mac that they were going to do. And so Mac decides to help the group, and they all head back to the camp right before it gets dark. They tell Mac that the reason why the collective, or the Gooch, have not come after AWOL themselves is because they're cowards, and that's why they just said, here you go do it. And also realized that this new group of friends that Mac and Duke have made are the ones who commandeered the missiles, and what it is that they plan to do with these missiles. Later on in the evening, we see Mac and Princess Julia. They both seem to be having a bit of trouble sleeping, and have an exchange about Duke that, let's just say, frustrates the ever-living hell out of Mac, and she returns to bed, and she's kind of pouting over there. Shortly thereafter, we see Julia get back up and kind of scurry out of the camp, and she's being trailed by Quirt, and he kind of hides behind some rocks, but that's not good enough because he gets yoinked right out of his hiding spot, and we cut. So, wonder what's going on there. The next morning, the group sets out to put their plan into action, and some of them are starting to question, what the hell happened to Quirt. Some of the others don't seem to care so much. Guess he wasn't that great of a guy. But I just want to take note of Big Jake over there looking suspicious as hell. Julia speaks with Duke and wants to change the plans because she doesn't trust AWOL since he's still connected in with the collective. And she's worried that his thoughts can still be read by them, and that'll give away what they're trying to do. Which, makes complete sense. Duke, though, he kind of reverses this on Julia and says, well, I find you suspicious, Princess, because ever since we've met, you've been really throwing up, putting on the charm for me, and I don't care for that. While this argument continues between Mac, Duke, and Julia, AWOL tells them that they've, arrived at their destination and they need to hurry. And as he's doing this, he gets zapped and sent backwards by the force field that they didn't intend on. This pretty much gives Duke the final word as far as AWOL's loyalty towards the group. But now they're like, okay, there is definitely a spy amongst us here. And Mac was trying to tell Duke this before they were interrupted by Julia. But she just says, fuck it, I'm going to air it all out. She goes over and hits Julia right in the face and accuses her of being the one that killed Quirt because she found his dead body out after following some footsteps. Big Jake doesn't take kindly to Julia being hit and immediately lifts Mac up by her throat and just chokes the shit out of her. Duke jumps into action and it goes hilariously bad for him. He can't do a damn thing. He grabs a small branch and just whap smacks Jake in the back of the head. Duke has his attention now. The fight comes to a quick stop when Princess Julia demands it. She just tells everybody, knock it off. Jake stops, everybody stops. She then goes and checks on her beloved, Jake. Duke then goes to check on Mac, who is just kind of laying on the ground, and he's like, man, I feel like such a clabberhead, and tries to wake her up. Well, come to find out, Mac is just pretending to be knocked out, and she asks, what's a clabberhead? This kind of irritates Duke a little bit. He was really concerned, and she was just putting on a show. And after making sure that she is in fact okay, he just drops her and storms off. Mac was not having this shit. She's been through a lot. She's not taking this shit from Duke. And she storms after, but instead of cussing him out or whatever she was going to do, decides to give Duke a big old smooch, which I think it's safe to say Duke did enjoy. Alright, so real quick, back to the spy business at hand. AWOL asks Julia, does this accusation of her killing Quirt have any merit to it? Julia explains that Quirt caught her and Big Jake in one another's arms last night, which is forbidden on her world and why she ended up on the island in the first place. Jake grabbed Quirt and a transmitter fell off of him. Quirt tells them that the Gooch said that they would let him off the island if he spied on the group for them. Jake and Julia decided to get him off the island in a way fit for traitors. So yeah, they killed the fuck out of that dude. Alright, so from there we get a few other things straightened out. We find that the collective cannot actually read AWOL's mind because he is an individual and they are a collective. So their brainwaves kind of make it a little easier for him to periodically peek in on what they're doing since there's a group of them, whereas with him just being an individual, it's next to impossible. And Julia was only being extremely friendly and kind of flirty with Duke because she just wanted to get close to him to see if he was in fact a spy. Now that our heroes are all hunky-dory again, we'll check in on the other Gooch, the collective here, and they are less than pleased of the unfolding events, finding out that Quirt is dead and that they're all right outside here. This means a loss of business for them if all goes according to their plans. So the collective then decide to send out subject V5.0, which is under their control. They have like a little probe giving them control. So back to our main group. Now that they're all friends again, they put the focus back on the missiles and go to set them in place for Mac to shoot. There's just one teeny tiny little problem. The mind control monster, V5.0, grabs the missiles, gives them a big old roar, and fucks right off with them. Rooster lassos the monster's leg and yells for everyone to grab on. AWOL is the only one who does grab on, and he gets one hell of a ride. Mac yells for him to drop. He does. She shoots and detonates one of the missiles. This blows up the monster, which then frees out the other missile, which drops down until it gets stuck in the force field, and then it blows up. Later, we see that Critty and the rest of the Gooch are in fact cowards and have all given up without much of a fight. Mac and Duke are ready to leave. They say their goodbyes and take off in a submarine/boat hybrid. They make their way to the surface. They breathe a sigh of relief, but that relief gets cut short because there's a big-ass serpent monster that appears from the water. but then suddenly it disappears along with the rest of the island. So relieved once again, the two start to discuss what they're going to tell everybody, like their future children. And basically, more or less, are like, let's get married, let's have a family. The two get some smooching in before a submarine from the Navy lifts them up, and everyone decides that they're not going to say a goddamn thing to the higher ups of the Navy. And I just want to make a quick note that this end kind of gives me a little bit of vibes from Dr. No, the James Bond movie. Because right at the end, 007, he gets rescued with his lady friend. I'm drawing a blank on her name at the moment. And, they're being towed along in the boat, and he just kind of lets the rope go while they also get their smooching in. So, and that's the end of Monster Island. And gotta say, I really, really enjoy this book. Maybe not quite as much as Joe Frankenstein, but this is a good one here. So I have no subplots or theories on this, so everything's good and wrapped up here. So I'm just going to go with some of the highlights of this comic and some of the tisms. And right off the bat, the two main characters are very likable. We have Mac, who's your navigator. She's got a really good shot and one hell of a fastball. And then we have Duke, who, damn good pilot. He's a John Wayne aficionado and is able to tell you the best spot for some wings. The humor pretty much always lands in this. I found myself really getting some good chuckles out of this. And this seems to be kind of a Compass Comics staple, I might add. Like, just kind of a quick little example. When Mac was initially talking to Critty, she says, well, there are no monsters on Earth. Why are you guys here? Unless you count politicians, that is. And I really like that. Just, it's always in all these books here, and I really do enjoy that. And also, I like that the Gooch didn't immediately speak English. They are able to telepathically learn a new language and, can then adapt to that. And so that's really nice. I really do enjoy that. It really helps with the immersion within the story. The only real tism that I have in this is when they were starting to crash land, they can't eject because the systems are shorted. But now, I'm no expert on the F-14 Tomcat, but I'm pretty sure that's to be able to land it, you would still have to have electrical components. So I'm sure not all these wings are reliant on levers and whatnot. So I do feel that that's a little bit odd that we can't eject because the electrical systems are malfunctioning, but we can still at least land safely. And the only thing I would have maybe done to adjust that is left it completely out of his control. They were just, scouting out the area, so they were low enough where it could just land, at least by luck, that they landed safely. And so I would have changed that a little bit. But other than that, I mean, this is a great book. I definitely recommend. This definitely is a thumbs up for me. It's a fun story. If you like things like King Kong, Jurassic Park series, or like The Lost World, or even if you just like monster things, you should check this out, as well as some of the other Compass Comics on their site. So that's all I got for today, guys. So until next time, take care, and God bless.